Good morning, and thank you for joining us to our budget development meeting today. We appreciate your attendance in the work session we just finished, and we'll move right into the budget development meeting. Ruth, do you need to call a roll, or?
No, we're fine, sir.
Okay. Then we'll move to agenda item number 2 is fiscal year 2020 budget development. Finance staff will provide information regarding fiscal year 2020 items for council budget decision-making consideration.
Okay.
Ashley.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Ashley Welsh, Deputy CFO. So before we get into this, I kind of want to explain where some of these numbers are coming from. I was directed by the mayor to add a 4% total increase to the hybrid pay scale instead of the 2.5. So this is reflecting that. We also had some movement in some capital. So recreation fund was getting a little close to their levy limitation. So with some of their capital improvements, I moved them to the capital improvement fund instead of paying for them out of recreation. So that saved some tax dollars. So what we're kind of looking at right now, so basically we're gonna levy $1 million for capital contingency, but we've already set aside some of that for a few projects. If we budget them out of there, it kind of saves us in tax and in our levy rates for general fund and recreation fund. So we move those, and that gives us about $785,000 of capital contingency just available to be used in FY20, in addition to whatever we have left at the end of this fiscal year. So when I put all the numbers in there and made those few little changes, with the additional increase to the hybrid pay scale at 4%, plus the tentative agreements with police and fire, we actually have an excess of about $25,000, and that includes all of the additions that you made last time we met. So my recommendation, that's taking the full 3%. We can put that 25,000 in like the non-departmental contingency and just make it 0 and publish that way. And then we can kind of see where the numbers come in at, or that would be my recommendation, but we can look at anything that you would like to.
We don't have, do you have any idea when the valuation numbers from the county will happen?
I think they're supposed to have them to us by like the first Monday or Tuesday in August, but where they got an extension, I haven't heard.
We don't know.
No. So this is also with the updated new construction and the North Yellowstone TIF closing. These are estimated amounts that I got from the county. They could potentially change, but usually those are pretty close to what they end up being. So
are those before or after the latest revelation on valuations?
So these don't take valuation really into account because it's new construction. So if somebody could go and say, I was actually occupying that house or whatever, and that could come off new construction potentially. But the TIF closing, they basically take these numbers and times it by last year's levy rate. So those shouldn't change unless the new construction changes. The thing that is going to change is your levy rate. Depending on what valuations go up, our levy rate is probably going to drop from what it was last year.
That's my question. That estimate of the TIF closing at $63 million, is that the old valuation or the new valuation?
It's going on as new construction, so it'll be added to valuation next year. It'll be on the tax rolls. Now it's just being added as new construction, so you get it at last year's levy rate instead of this year's.
But I don't mean levy rate. With the county's revelation on these new valuations, is that number estimate before or after these new estimated valuations?
I believe it is after. Because she just gave them to me like a week or two ago.
If they're using last year's levy rate,
They do use last year's levy rate.
then I would think it would be before, because they would be applying a levy rate
$36,000.
to a new value, an old levy rate to a new value, which I don't think is accurate.
But the new construction has to come on sometime this year, so they value it during the year.
Oh, during the year, okay.
And so that was the estimated, the TIF closing, that $63 million is with the additional valuation as of this point in time that's gonna come onto the tax rolls. So that should be the FY19 amounts.
And can I go back to the wage
Yes.
structure that you've built in? I'm very pleased about the 4%. That is really good news. But I also wanted to be clear, the 4% plus a step.
Correct.
So all of that is included.
Yes.
Okay.
4% plus a step, and then what we negotiated with police and fire.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Thank you for
The
clarifying.
4% plus a step for general, and then what we negotiated for
Yep.
police and fire. Okay.
Yep.
And it's all built in.
Everything
and
is
this-
built into this amount that you're seeing right here. Just had some movements and some budget authority, which saved us some tax dollars. And so by utilizing that capital contingency fund and kind of planning on already using part of that, it saved us some money. And then also a few things that we added for IT. We added them at 100% tax value, and they're not, because he's paid as an interfund. So it kind of gets spread out across the city, as well as any costs to the mayor's office, the finance office, HR, and legal. Those get spread out through the city as a whole also. So the overall tax impact wasn't as much as we thought it was gonna be, because we were trying to be conservative when we were going through it the first time.
Thanks.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
So I would like to see us not just go all the way max 3% because we can. I mean, I know we've got 24,000. It's not like a huge amount, but rather than putting it into just a fund for something, I would prefer us to just not take that and
Just zero that out and
Yeah.
pull it off of that.
Just a question on that, though. To publish, we want to go high because we can always come down. Can we include it to publish, but then
Yes,
not take it later?
yes.
Our final time to be able to decide whether or not you take it or not, or you bring it down, the final time would be the second meeting in August, is that correct?
Right.
Yep, so the public
Okay.
hearing is the 1st of
Yes.
August, and then the ordinance will be adopted,
15th.
will be voted on the second meeting in
And we
August.
have the study session in between
Yeah,
to adjust.
that will be
So
able to.
we can either meet during that work session, or we can schedule a special meeting depending on when we get valuations
That would
in,
be August
to go over,
8th,
where all the
something like
final
that.
numbers will sit.
How many years in a row has the city taken a portion of the 3%? 3% or a portion of it?
So let me go to, I don't know, let's see. Okay, so we've taken 3%, I believe, the last 2 or 3 years, but you can see because of the change in valuation, and oh, sorry, that number looks really high to me, the 4.02. It ended up being about 1.3%. So that 3% increase in tax only had a 1.3% effect on the levy rate.
But the budget still went up 3%.
It was
under
two, what was it?
So we
last year?
published
we published
3%, and then with the new valuations,
Right.
that 3% actually was dropped to the 2 point
Something.
whatever.
Four
But the
or
question was,
two.
how many years have we taken a portion of that 3%? Is that right?
I think we have budgeted to take the full 3% I know for sure the last 2
The
years.
last 2 years I know we have, maybe
And so
3
if you
years.
look at this, if we take the full, this is including the full 3% minus that 25, you're a 1.54% increase without new valuation numbers in.
With new valuation numbers, we're assuming that they're going up. That's what everybody got the notice that said they are. With that 1.54%
Will go down.
theoretically should go down.
And we're looking at our levy rate going down most likely?
Yes. Or staying relatively the same. It just depends on what valuations come in at. So, yeah, our levy rate, I'm guessing, should remain at least the same. I don't think it'll go up. But the tax dollars that we're taking are going up
Right.
because you are I calculated it, and the total increase in wages and benefits that the council has decided to give to the employees this year is 1.6 million, and we're actually only increasing our tax by 1.5. So with adding in all of the raises for employees, capital that we have, and operating, so I feel like we've addressed all three of those issues this year, and we're still only having a small impact to tax in relation to what we've been able to add and take care of for the city, especially the employees. I think that's kind of the biggest one that we've been trying to focus on this year.
The council stated early employees were going to be a top priority.
Right.
And this is, the council's really truly taken that statement seriously. And if this continues and this goes and we don't move any of those things, I want to make sure that the employees know that the council said it, and I would encourage the department heads to make sure that your employees know the council said it, the council meant it, and the council has acted on it. We don't take these things lightly, and we value every one of our employees, regardless of what department you work for and where you are. And there's been a lot of uproar in the community, whether or not we do or don't. And it's just absolutely false to think that the council does not value every employee that we have. And I hope that the community will rally behind that. And I hope that the department heads will at least make mention that it's been a priority to the council, and we've worked hard to do that. It's obvious if this budget holds this way, and so
Mr.
please.
Mayor, would you care to comment in terms of our people on fixed incomes, what this impact will have on them?
This impact on fixed income people, I mean, anytime you have a fixed income, you're going to be affected one way or another with the taxes. The biggest effect that they will have is the valuations and where those come in.
Which we have no
Which we have no control over. That's a county thing for them to decide and figure out what the proper value of the homes are. We still have the opportunity to help people on a fixed income with everything that we're still doing. We're doing it at the same level, if not a higher level, with the services. When you come to fixed income, I think parks, I think PRT, I think those services that help. I mean, the nonprofit organizations that rely on the city's financial help as well, Aid for Friends, Family Services Alliance, those agencies that are also affected there are being kept whole, and it's been it's a good solid, in my mind, it's a good solid budget that we are affecting people as very minimal as we can, but yet giving them the value that they've expected and the service that they've expected for decades. I think this council has worked very hard to put something together to take care of people, employees and non-employed citizens of the community.
Thank you.
And when we get those valuation numbers in, we can calculate an estimate of what the increase would be, and maybe look at a couple different scenarios of, okay, well, the average, was, let's say 20 or 30%, and we can see, based on their valuation going up, what our tax will do to their overall tax bill. We can look at that when we have valuations.
I think the public would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that the actual impact of, kind of what is going to happen to the citizens of Pocatello.
Ashley, could you can play with this, right? Mm-hmm. Could you plug in for me on the amount assessed? This is my crystal ball thing.
All right, we got a crystal ball.
$3.132,366,741.
So you mean the total valuation?
Yeah. Total valuation.
How much?
$3,132,366,741.
That's your number, right? I want to make sure I got it in there
Yep.
correctly. Okay.
So Roger, tell me how you came up with that
I
number.
came up with that number by looking at a baseline of 20% across the board in evaluation. Because there are going to be some adjusted down. I know, for example, there were identical condominiums, one wall between them. One of them was 100,000 more than the other one. So, I know there's going to be some adjustments there. I know of people that just, I think the evaluations will go up by 20%.
And if they go up by 20%, that's what you would be looking
And,
at.
and I'm looking at the other numbers you presented us with the 63 million, the 21 million, they're the add-ons this year. So that is the ballpark I think we will be in. But remember, even with that type of reduction in levy, there are people who will be paying a lot more in taxes because that levy rate will hit them harder than others. Because there are people that went past their homeowner's exemption. And so they're going to get a huge increase there. I know some people who had a $110,000 increase in their assessment. There will be people that will pay a lot more in taxes simply because they have been levied much, much more. And even cutting the levy rate doesn't cut the tax rate.
But those people have not been paying taxes because of that homeowner's exemption.
Well,
And
that's true.
so they're now paying something that they are paying. And I agree, we're going to have a number of people that are now paying that they're not used to paying. And that's the real effect
Well,
of the
but I
valuations.
think if you look in our book here, I think median household value was like $140 million, $1,000 median, maybe just a little higher. There are a lot of those people that will be right knocking on the door. And they're going to see that go up. I know some people who pushed on through the homeowner's exemption application big time, and that will affect them much more because part of what they were paying was halved up until this evaluation. Every time they got an add-on, it was cut in half until they met the exemption. But they pushed on through it, and now then they're going to have what little they had left plus what overage they have over $200,000. They're going to be paying taxes on.
Yeah.
And so I feel that we're going to have to cut some more to be in a reasonable territory for what our individual application is to our taxpayers. Because I really think that the ones getting hit hardest by this are going to be people who pay rent. Because I think it's going to be just added on right away as part of their rent. That's up to the individual landlord, I know. But when they see a cost they can pass on, they usually do it. And that's no criticism, that's just business. And so even with this reduction, and I think that we have been failed in our assessments over the years because it hasn't gone up gradually like it has historically. We've been failed by that. That's a hard sticker price for a lot of people to absorb. So I feel we'll probably vote this today, but I think we really need to be prepared to come back in and see practical application in August.
Well, that's going to really look like Heidi.
Okay, so I remember last year in our budget, I had asked you, well, okay, what are some ideas of things we could cut? And this is not a cut, but this is something I would like to get the council's opinion on, and we haven't really talked about this in our budget meetings before, but since this is a budget meeting, I guess we can talk about it. But one thing that I have been thinking about is we have some staff in our planning department and our finance department that spend a lot of their time helping and assisting the PDA, and the city is not reimbursed for that. And so it's not a cut, but it would help the overall picture if we were to get some revenue from the PDA to cover that staff time. So I would like us to look at that and get, you know, kind of
I agree
put
with that.
the
So
PDA
I
on notice that
also
they
would
need to
say
do that, or else they need to
This
go
will be
get
the
somebody else.
third or fourth budget cycle we've had a economic development person on the budget, but we've never actuated that. I'd just take that all out. Since we're not doing it, take it out. Give the taxpayers a break there, because we haven't figured out how to get that done. And carrying it 3 or 4 budget cycles is not worthwhile. That's not responsible budgeting. So I think that could go. I wasn't here and I watched the tapes on the discussion for council raises and mayor raises. Absent from that discussion, first of all, I don't know how the number appeared exactly because it wasn't in what I could view that showed up on the second session. But the council got around a $500 raise in 2018. And the mayor got about $5,000 raise in 2018. I don't think that makes sense to employees to have those kind of raises, because $500 is substantial on what we make. And $5,000 is a substantial raise. I don't think the taxpayers buy that. And I would say, at the minimum, what we ought to do is adjust down to what we're doing for employees. If we're saying 5% for employees, 5% for council, 5% for mayor. I think that's a minimum of what we should do there. It just makes sense. We're all in the same city, all working on the same thing, and I'd just go there. Just suggestions. Minimum.
Thoughts? I would like to follow up on what Heidi said, and maybe we need to have our planning / PDA executive director visit with the PDA, put a plan together, and visit with the PDA about the expense so that we can actually get that in front of the PDA and put them on notice that we're going to be looking there.
Yeah, Melanie Gigley, Planning Director. I will put it on the agenda for the chair to review for the July meeting, which comes up on the 24th. Just recently, we created a project code so that anybody who is working on PDA jobs can now code their time to that, so that we would actually have a hard number. We don't have that for the past. I could swag something. It's been a very busy year though, so it's a little, I hate to say it was this much in the year that the Northgate TIF process was going on, because that was far more intensive. I mean, even now, it's dropped off in the last 4 weeks. So that is something I've been trying to look toward for you.
Do we need, I mean, since we're doing budget things right now though, do we need to come up with like a ballpark so that we can reflect it in these numbers, or how, you know what I mean? Rather than waiting for them to have a meeting and come back with what I just don't want to prolong it any longer than we need to.
You could set an amount that you feel is at least close to accurate. It is a little difficult where we did not time code our money, so it would kind of be we're going to make this charge based on what we think it cost. The PDA does have the ability to spend money on administering their functions out of each TIF district.
Yeah, I would feel better even if it was a low amount this year, putting something in budgeting for that revenue, and then getting them, you know, tracking the numbers and adjusting it up if we need to for next year. But rather than do nothing this year and get the data, I would rather just get something even if we think it's on the low end.
So you're proposing to add the revenue and
add that in
decrease
as
the
revenue.
tax?
Because that's where it would come in. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things that has happened in the past, there's been an admin fee that was paid out of the TIF districts to PDA, and that admin fee then became a tool. It accrued just in PDA, but it became a tool by which PDA could do some other things, because it became divorced from the actual TIF district because it was an admin fee, and it became something they could do small business loans out of, and some startups and stuff like that, or things like that.
Absolutely, that has.
So theoretically, you could say, okay, PDA, do you want to step up and help us with the airport out of admin fees for advertising? Because they have pretty wide discretion what they do there.
They do have some wide discretion. It still needs to be related to urban renewal activities. So you'll see it, or economic development. So you'll see it sometimes in light removal or in support of businesses in order to create jobs or something like that. I would really have to take a closer look at a direct advertising campaign.
Well, but they've
for
done
instance.
loans for people.
But
and
loans for businesses or business startups, that kind
they've
of thing.
forgiven some loans to people, I think.
I know there have been a couple of defaults. I do not know
Well,
the past
yeah.
many years. I do not
Yeah.
know if there have been direct forgiveness.
Well, forgiveness or default, they
yeah.
don't go collect it.
Also, I will tell you that this is way in the past, and I do not have real good numbers because it's well before my involvement. When some of the support for PDA was not done by city staff, the PDA paid a quarterly fee. That, again, I don't have good information for you, and I'm sorry, I would have been more prepared. That took care of like taking minutes and the executive director, some of those activities. So it was paid out. I believe it was about $3,000 a quarter. Again, I don't know how that was based, if someone gave an estimate or just said, we'll provide this service to you for X. So there is precedent for it, absolutely.
So can you kind of get us a number before August 1?
I will do my darndest.
I mean, just,
It kind of depends on how good the financial records are back there, and we have improved over the years. But I will do my best, yes, on what it should cost or
Well, but
what
even
we've
if
done
you
in the
have an
past.
idea, like, okay, this is how many hours I spend in meetings on a conservative basis.
Oh,
and
sure.
Take that as a percentage of the positions that are spending time
Something like that,
doing
yeah.
stuff for the PDA. I mean, even if it's just,
Because there's 3 main staff members that spend
Yeah.
time doing that. Yeah, I think we could do that. Absolutely.
okay.
And that would give you a spot in the revenue.
okay.
Okay?
Council? Thoughts?
Is that enough?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are we going to deal with these additional request items not in the budget? Are we going to discuss any of those?
If you would like to, we can discuss those.
I think it would be most appropriate that we do that. I am very much in favor of the mayor receiving an increase. I am very much in favor of deducting the council request as we discussed it before. And I think Heidi has an excellent suggestion in terms of what we might be able to do with city council as it relates to other city employees. Do you want to mention that?
Sure. Well, I just remember 2 years ago when we had this discussion, there was mention that it should at least be, so that it doesn't get so far behind and then you've got to take these big jumps, which then people are obviously worried about. So if 4% is the amount that employees are getting, then we could apply that to the mayors and city councils. I think that would be very reasonable.
And that's generally what we've done in the past is when we used to give COLAs, we would go back and see, because you can only vote on these during an election year. And so we would go back and see what the council had missed in COLAs, and that's generally what would get added to their salary. So since there wasn't a and now there are market adjustments, but last year there wasn't a market adjustment. This year it's going to be the 4%.
So you're suggesting 4% for mayor and for council?
Well, that was just a thought, and I guess I hadn't really thought about this till just now, but the employees also get a step, and there are no steps built in, so I'm not sure if that would, I heard you say 5 earlier. I didn't know if you were, that's where you're coming up with that, or what you were thinking.
Yeah, I was
but
thinking collectively, most employees are going to hover around.
Okay.
Well, and
So
Heather
maybe-
had calculated the average cost or the average percentage across the hybrid scale and the police pay scale was 2.04% for a step.
Which is where
Okay.
the the fire department number came
Yes.
because they don't get steps, so it was the 4 plus the 2.04.
yes.
So like if the mayor doesn't get a step, we should calculate 4 plus the 2 to make it equivalent to
But-
employees?
You can't compare it to fire, because fire had only a 1% raise, I believe, plus some longevity or a step. We got raises just.
We're not
2000
comparing to fire, we're just saying
I
that the
heard it.
2.04 was the average
Was the calculation of the
step.
That's what went into
Oh.
fire calculation. What I'm saying is, I'm okay with 4. I said minimum 5, I'd go lower. Because we got hefty raises 2018. I mean, we need to know what that percentage was on mayor's position and our position before we can go forward and say what is appropriate now. It was completely missed in the last meeting where you discussed how much that we got a raise. That wasn't even really talked about. And, 500 and some odd dollars on 10,100, that's a pretty good increase. And I just think we got to parallel what we do with employees. We got to say, we take into account what you got last time, and we're taking into account what this would be this time. Until we have that, I'm really hard pressed to go beyond 4.
Yeah, I think their argument was just that most general employees, I mean, the average is going to be 6.04% because the average step cost is 2.04%. So,
And employees usually get a step every year, and we're only talking
Yes.
every 2 years because it's an election year.
But our step would
thing
be
that you
much
have to do.
lower. And,
yeah, and there isn't, the pay scale isn't
I don't know
set up.
what the calculation is. I don't know if you have a thought on what it should be or what. I mean, I know we had the discussion earlier about this is not because any of us are like, woohoo, a couple $100. I mean, that's not what we're doing it for. We're looking at future people who may want to run
Okay.
and making it so that it's not cost prohibitive to them. I mean, they've got, vehicle expenses, mileage driving around town to events. I mean, there are a lot of things that they have to do.
We have to discriminate between what are the functions of being a council member and what is the function of campaigning. The function of being a council member is to attend what is assigned as part of your duty. That means you've got to attend the liaison group. That means you have to attend the meetings here. And that's pretty much it. Other stuff are your discretionary decisions.
But it's a responsibility of a city council person to attend community events at
We
a
hear it
much
from many
greater
people.
percentage
Yes,
than anybody
We
else.
I
hear
think
people
when
all
they
the time say,
understand
why
that
aren't the
they're paying
council
for you to
members at our
attend,
events?
they'll
We
buy.
expect
I go
you
to a lot
to
of
be
things that
here.
nobody pays me to attend, and I'm doing it as a council person.
And often it's invited too. I mean,
Yes.
people want
Right.
council
Times.
members out in the community at their events.
And it's not for
But are you
campaigning,
getting
it's to
paid
show
for it?
support.
No.
And then don't consider that as part of pay. If you want to be paid for it, then consider it part of pay.
It's part of the
Other ways you're
position.
campaigning. You're putting yourself out there in front of.
No way.
I
I'm doing it as a
don't,
city council person.
And I think what we talked about last time is still a valid point, that this really isn't about us and, our personal situations right now, but making the position of, making reasonable compensation for the position so that anybody interested in running can run and serve. That it's not only wealthy people that can serve, that you can have somebody, maybe who isn't wealthy, who isn't retired, who maybe doesn't have a dual income or doesn't own a business, and that they still can afford to be able to serve in office. And I think the position needs to allow for that in a democratic society, so.
Well, the total compensation, I don't know what it is for sure, but it's got to be pushing 21 to 23,000 total.
Total compensation? I'd have to look at it.
Total compensation is in that because you got your insurance, you got your VIVA, you got city's contribution to your PERSI. You got all that goes in there, and I would think total package has got to be, and it depends on what insurance you carry and stuff
Right.
like that.
And I can look that up and give an average.
But I just think that for a part-time job when our economy is saying, and I think I saw here in this book, about $40,000 is the median income. And you're making just slightly more than half the median income to be on the council on a part-time job. So that's where I'm going to come from. I just cannot see us getting out there too far.
Well, you may be interested to know, I've done a calculation on just very conservatively the amount of time we spend in meetings and to our liaisons, not even counting community events, okay? Didn't even include that in the mix. And if you calculate our hourly rate, it's like the lowest of, I mean, it's really a low hourly rate compared to everyone else. I think it's about the same as
It's less than $3 an hour.
well, yeah, I mean, it's,
And if you include
well, it's
reading.
definitely that if you include all of the reading and all
the
of
studying, the research.
and all of the other events, but I'm just talking about just the meetings itself. It's,
I did not run for this position
Yeah.
for the salary.
none of us did.
No one did it.
None of us did.
But when I'm doing this, I'm not selling houses. And I can make a lot more money selling houses when there's an inventory, if given the opportunity. So,
I will weigh in on this just a little bit, and I'll let you continue. But as a city council person, if you have a job and you have to go and ask your boss to take some time off, there is not enough money with what you're making right now, even with this increase of what it would be to justify taking time off of your full-time job to come to a part-time job, regardless if you have insurance and all of that other stuff at the top of the thing. It's not beneficial for the employer that you're leaving employed, and it's not beneficial to you because you're not getting paid there either. And so when you look at that whole package, if you're not going to make it feasible for somebody that has a job that can't leave every Thursday, because to date you've had 110 or
60.
12, well,
There
to
was a discrepancy in what was reported in one meeting than the next.
what today, but today, and I'm just going to pull the number out of the sky that I remember, the minutes that we have from January 1 to now, if I remember right, the last time was like 110 or something like that. So now you're at 112 or 13 meetings, and these meetings don't take 20 minutes. It's an all-day meeting. And so when you start looking at asking a boss to take 110 meetings or opportunities during the year, and you're halfway through the year, what is it? The 11th of July. You're figure it out, that's 200 meetings a year I'm taking off of work so that I can go and do this. You really, truly, I mean, you look at the whole picture. If you want to look at the whole picture, I get that, but you've got to make it reasonable for people to be able to.
But it
run.
was argued, you want to make this where other people will come, and the job description now has gone from having to attend city council meetings, study sessions, and all these, to everything that you should go to in the community. You've made it into a much more than a part-time job by the job description you guys have put out there.
That's what the community expects.
But
And I think
if you think that, that's fine, but I know that just by going as a liaison, when I came on the council, to the liaison meetings, I was heralded because they were not very well attended by liaisons.
that's because this group is committed.
Well, but I
I've
think
never
you're projecting a job description that you need to go to all community events now. That's what I've heard today. And if that's true, you're precluding a lot of people who have an expertise to come up here and sit on this council in a much more limited basis, bring their expertise to bear up here, because you widened this into a much wider job description.
My description of 200 meetings did not include any community events that the council was asked to go to. Has 200 meetings that is in the job description that you just described, the council meetings that are put together for the council to attend, that we're expected to attend, is about a 200 meeting. It might not be quite 200, it might be just over 200 annually by the time the end of the year. If the 110 or whatever meetings to date from January 1 to July 11 is correct.
But you can't double it because this was a lot of budget meetings up to this point.
So go to 180 meetings then. Go to 180, go to 160. There's still a lot of meetings to ask somebody to take time off of work to miss so that they can volunteer.
And I can bring those calculations to our next meeting of what, I can look at both the 4% and a 6.04%. It's pretty, it's not really that hard to do those kind of calculations. So I can bring those. I can also bring the average total compensation associated with all of that to the next meeting if you would like me to.
Sounds good. So that would be good. Anything else you want to discuss in these?
Well, are we going to take the senior planner off totally then? From consideration?
I think in where we are with the budget at this point, I would.
Okay.
Take out the senior planner?
Are these numbers calculated in this?
Yes.
They're included already.
They're included in the budget that we have right now?
Yes.
These numbers are
Every
already
year.
included in those?
So, okay, is that additional I requested not in the budget? Is that a mistake?
So it was from last time, I just
Okay.
didn't move them up. So if they have an amount in column D,
Okay.
then they are in there. If they don't,
Okay.
they're not in there. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Got it.
I just didn't move them up to the other section because I kind of wanted you to see
If we can play around with
from
that.
last time that this is what we added that wasn't in the budget from initially, that we added at the last tax solution.
So,
So these are all in the budget now?
Yes.
With the $24,000 excess?
Yes.
okay.
I'd go ahead and pull it though.
Well, the senior planner is not the business development person.
I know, but I'd pull that too because until we got, if we look at this holistically, we know that we've got a projected retirement, and I would think that the new person coming in should be in charge of that. And if you're putting in your reserve stuff, you ought to be able to hire that person if it's essential. I mean, if it's essential and that new person determines that, because there'll be every time there's a department head change, there's a change in the way people work. And it may be that that's the first priority they have, and it may not be. And we're trying to predetermine somebody we hire to run a department and say, this is how you will run your department, you're going to add this person.
But I thought the senior planner was not actually the person who's going to be running, excuse me, running the department, that it was somebody who would be doing long-term planning.
Correct.
That was what we talked about. And we have a desperate need for long-term planning that we haven't addressed.
Melanie, would you explain to us
Yeah.
the senior planner?
This senior planner is exactly as you said, to allow the potential for long-range planning. Right now, we do some. You had us here with some subdivision changes and some zoning changes. But what we've done is we last did, for instance, we did a comprehensive plan in 2015. Generally, immediately following a comprehensive plan, you review your subdivision ordinance to make sure it's still in conformance with your comp plan. Well, it's 2019 and we've just barely got a few minor things in front of you that really are stuff that we found out doesn't work anymore. So we're trying to move in a more favorable condition for people using the zoning. So obviously we are 4 years late because we don't have capacity beyond current planning. I don't see that changing with the new director. It might. That new director may say, I'm going to do the long-range planning. I don't know what the rest of the stuff, where the rest of the stuff's going to go, but you know, you do get some shifts when you have a new person in a position. An example might also be something like Terry First. We did this project, we got some great information. It would be really nice to be able to start working on the overlays and some of the design guides that you need to start creating that. But that's a long-range planning thing. So, and right now, you know, we just heard 3 new subdivisions at P&Z last night. So there's where our time goes, is in our current planning. So we're keeping up with current stuff pretty well most days. Long-range planning is really not occurring, and that's what this position will free up.
Council, as I look at the budget, personally, I would keep it all in right now until we know what the numbers are. We know what happens to that taxes and the levy rate and all of that stuff. I would keep it. If that's in and we have an excess right now, I would publish this way, and then when we can see what it is, if it does what Roger anticipates, his crystal ball gave us 20%. If it gives us 15%, our levy rate drops.
But you could see a $300,000 house, just, I don't have the numbers, you could see a $300,000 house that had a $80,000 raise, so $380 now. They're going to pay that levy rate on an additional $80,000.
That's right.
Which is $800 and some dollars more. And that's far beyond consumer price index that we do everything else based on.
I don't disagree with that, but there again, we are one taxing entity of seven.
But we are the largest taxing entity
Six.
of the seven.
Six in Bannock County. We are one taxing entity. And if we are responsible and we're doing what we're doing here, and I think this is a responsible, a good, solid budget, if we're doing what we need to continue to provide the services and take care of the people and do the things that we need to, there is no reason why we would cut this and continue to degrade what our abilities are because of that. We have an opportunity, and I think it's proper budgeting. I think it's what should be happening.
Jim brought up a while ago what would happen to our people on fixed incomes. We potentially could consume more than what their adjusted income will be. In other words, they might get, what was the Social Security raise this year, 2%, something like that? And we raise their taxes far more than their 2% take-home is on their Social Security.
Their taxes are being raised right now by the valuation at the county level. We cannot control that.
Their taxes are being raised by what we do here. The valuation can be a neutral thing if you don't raise taxes, because it is what we do here that is the multiple in that equation. And if we don't take our multiple seriously, that multiple has ramifications way beyond what you're expecting.
I think we have taken that seriously, though. I think we have taken it seriously, and we have been responsible with it. I think for decades we have. I know for at least a decade we have been very responsible for it and looking and trying to protect all. And I think we've accomplished that. I'm very proud of what we've been doing. Absolutely.
Can I clarify a number that you told us earlier? I was writing it down. Did you tell us that if we publish at this stuff that we've talked about, that represents a 1.5 million of increased tax, but that 1.6 million is going towards employee raises. Mm-hmm. So if any citizen comes and says to us, why did you take 1.5 million? Our answer to them is because we value our employees and they needed a raise. Is that accurate?
And you did. You took care of employees. You took care of operating, because we added in a lot of operating that departments came in and asked for. And you also are still trying to take care of capital, which we've ignored for a very long time. And so I think you're taking care of the three things that you need to. Yeah, 1.5 is overall for the city as a whole, not just the tax funds, but still, I mean, when you look at all the stuff that you're achieving with this budget, an increase of 1.5 million isn't that much in comparison to what you're doing.
And this is the biggest raise for our employees in how
Since
long?
1979.
79. So we've really addressed that priority that we wanted to address. I think that is the main expense
Yes.
of the budget this year.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the requests that we have here, like such as senior planner and all these, these are not extraordinary requests. These are things that these department heads have really put a lot of time and effort into and looking at what they need. If they didn't need these, they would not have asked for those. So it makes me uncomfortable to say, yeah, let me cut this, which means that it's more pressure on them. It's more, not even workload, but the ability to function and do their tasks. I think it's important for us to remember that. These are not just things that they just came up with out of the blue.
Well, you have in here a veterinarian technician for the animal services. That's something that's probably never been contemplated for our animal services. You've got that added in here too. I mean, as I look at this, the more I look at it, the more I see where we have really, truly, we've worked hard at getting where we need to be and doing what we need to for the community. Well, like Ashley said, we're covering the 3 most important issues or areas of concern that we have here with this budget. I think it's a good, solid budget. I wouldn't move a thing personally.
And I think long-range planning is really important.
Okay, so what hasn't been discussed is we cut personnel in fire and we cut personnel in police.
We didn't fill positions.
We didn't fill positions, but we cut
people.
personnel. We didn't cut people, we cut personnel.
Well, we didn't have any layoffs or
We cut
anything.
No,
What we did
well,
was,
my
if
point
there's a
is,
vacant
we're
spot,
adding in other areas, but we've already deleted, and we're not filling some positions elsewhere. I think we could at least take $130,000 out for whatever the amount is for the economic development person. We haven't used that. Why not put it to use in one of these departments?
Well, I bet our employees felt better about the raise, or will feel better about the raises, than those couple of positions.
that are vacant.
Well, why if we
Vacant.
just not do any positions and raise it more then? If that's the philosophy.
In the best interest of
You're budgeting.
public relations, I move we remove the $31,258 for city council potential increase in wage.
Second.
I thought we talked about having the department.
I'm removing the
calculate.
whole thing. That's my motion. Can be amended, but
Do we need a motion? Do we not? Do we?
Okay, so let me get one set up, sorry.
This is for guidance, and a motion is the cleanest way to do that. It's not an action item until the budget is passed.
So for guidance, then we have a motion and a second. Motion by Johnston and a second by Cheatham. Ruth, would you call the roll?
I will as soon as I get it set up, sir.
She's taking the clock.
I think it's,
We can change.
Okay, Johnston,
yes.
Cheatham,
Yes.
Adamson,
I don't feel comfortable removing it entirely, so no.
Bray,
Yes.
Lurick,
I agree with Heidi. I'm going to say no. I think we need to look at a different amount.
Manon,
I'm in agreement with Linda and Heidi, so no.
and I'm in agreement with them, and so no. I don't, yeah.
I will bring amounts to the next meeting so that you can look at them. This is just publishing the budget, so you cannot go any higher, but you can decrease it.
Thank you.
Well, if we're doing this by motion, I would move that the mayor get an increase of 5%.
Second.
Are you saying that's just what it is, or you want to have the information about steps or whatever that they calculate?
Let's just say
before we-
5%. You got about 6% in 2018.
Okay,
I'd
so-
still like to see the other numbers before making a
Okay,
decision
I'm just
on
saying,
that.
that's where I'm coming from.
So we have a motion by Bray and a second by Manon. As soon as you're ready, would you call the roll?
Bray,
Yes.
Manon,
Yes.
Adamson,
I would like to look at the other numbers that are presented before making a decision on the amount, so no.
Now,
Johnston?
No.
Lurick?
No, I'd also like to see more numbers.
So council, my suggestion would be the guidance to publish as is so that we can see the numbers and go through what we need to.
And just for clarification, I was gonna calculate a 4% and a 6.04%. Would you like me to do a 5% or just those two? I just need clarification.
Can we
on
do the
what to
5
bring.
too?
Let's do 5.
I mean, it's only 7 positions, so it's not super hard to calculate. So I can do a 5% also. I just wanted clarification. Thank you.
For perspective, could we go back? You probably didn't say that, what I gave you, that number on the levy rate.
I think I left it in there.
Okay. That it's .009.
Mm-hmm.
In the budget that was just published for this 2019, it shows Pocatello at 1.14, shows the next entity at 0.95, it shows the next one at 0.92, and then it descends. I think if we're going to be competitive and we want to attract business, we have to keep our taxes competitive too. And so I'm just putting that out there because even with that reduction that we have potential, and I may be way, way off, we're still going to be higher than what is published in this 2019.
Right, and it's the 2019 budget book, but those are fiscal year 18 levy rates because the tax year is a little bit behind. So
Yeah, and ours went up to 117 instead of 114.
Yeah, I emailed that link to the Idaho State Tax Commission so that you can go out and actually see, because I think that I put in there Chubbuck was at a .010.
I'm looking at the major cities.
Right.
You know, the Idaho Falls, Caldwell, Nampa, Twin Falls, Boise, Coeur d'Alene, Meridian, Lewiston, and Post Falls, I think round out the top 10
Yeah, and
cities.
you can look at the updated ones on that website. You just click on that link and it'll take you right to look at all of the levies for the last like 5 or 6 years, I think is on there.
And where were we on that
Where,
list?
like what amount were we
The
or?
last time I looked, we were 6th.
that's about right.
Information out there from our county commissioners and stuff say we're the highest taxed with the levy rate, which was absolutely 100% false. If you look at the numbers, if I remember, we were 6th.
So
of the
we're
big cities.
Yeah, the budget document I believe shows the top, like the highest based on population. So you're comparing to population based, not overall total for the whole city.
Yeah.
Because when I put that together, I was taking like the top, I think 7 or
There's
8
eight
cities,
here, I think,
8.
yeah.
So I just took the top 8 based on population and compared. Those are where those comparisons came from. I wasn't looking across the state as a whole. So
But I also want to caution the council from trying to figure out the budget by using the levy rate number. It's something that has to be looked at, but the real number to operate the city is not whatever the levy rate shows us, however low we want to mark that levy rate, because if we focus only on that levy rate, then you will be cutting next year. You absolutely will not be increasing things, and CPI happens. You can't build a budget around a levy rate. You've got to build a budget around the needs, and the levy rate is the product of those needs.
right, because we
So
have no
please
control.
consider that as you're talking about this levy rate. And I think that if Roger's crystal ball is right and you drop under 1%, that is huge. That is an accomplishment that very few people can say they've been able to achieve. And really, truly, it's because the valuations have gone where they've gone. And so I would caution everybody that if I'm looking at a levy rate itself, because I look at those levy rates, we dropped it. I mean, we were down to, if you go back, FY13, we were under 1% in FY13. We were also today settling a lawsuit because of that number, that levy rate. And
The
so,
levy rate was right around It wasn't near as high as what it's been in the last few
No,
years.
what?
Prior to the pilot. Prior to the pilot, the levy rate just hovered a little bit above 1%. That's not prior to pilot.
And,
No, I
and-
don't have, yeah.
And you look at
it's
that. If your numbers are right, you look at that.
Yeah, and
That's a
the
solid
pilot goes
budget.
back farther. I don't have those numbers on
Well, it
the
is,
sheet.
but at the same time, you gotta think of what that levy produces in taxes to individuals.
I don't think anybody isn't thinking about that. I don't think anybody isn't thinking about that. They're going to pay that because that's the value of the homes. That's why they're going to pay that. It's not because of what the city has done here. It's the values of, it's been a shock and awe for everybody right now, and we can't get caught up in the middle of that shock and awe. We need to look and see what it's going to take for the city to function correctly and properly and as expected, and this is what it does. I hope your numbers are right. I actually hope your numbers are low, because it'll drop that levy rate, because everybody focuses on that, and it's the wrong thing to focus on when budgeting for a city.
I am really proud of what we have done and what we are doing for this city. Our number one priority was employees. We've done it the best we could, I think, there. I think we've done really a good job in terms of the planning that we've done and the acquisition. I'm just looking at Tom and his facility out there and the fleet program. We've just done marvelous things. And I'm tired of the criticism because we've been progressive in terms of what we're doing. I'm proud of this council because people have done their homework. And we've disagreed, but in the final analysis, this city is moving ahead because we are being responsible.
People are in the community are not criticizing what has happened. People in the community that I have heard, and I talk to a lot of people, are very proud of where the city is and what has happened in the last little while. I know that levy rate has gone up. We've had to plan for and budget and take care of the things that we have now, knowing that we have a lawsuit that we've got to take care of. And we've been able to do all of that stuff and increase the, what do you call that, Tom, for the roads? The
PCI, Pavement Condition Index.
PCI index, condition index, whatever it is, what he said. But we've been able to increase that. We've been able to take care of parks better. We've been able to take care of our IT systems like we've never had before. We've been able to protect our citizens the way that we've never. Everything is moving forward the way it needs to be moving forward. And so when we're focused only on that levy rate number, we lose focus on what the citizens have asked us to do.
Have we done a good job with our first responders?
Absolutely.
I think so too. And I can talk to any one of these guys, the police or the fire, any of our emergency people. I don't have any complaint because we have the very best people. They're the best trained. They have, I think, some of the very best equipment. And this council has stood behind them. And so I think we're moving in the right direction. And I don't want a few dollars to keep us from continuing to be successful.
Well, I think that you bring up the first responders, and you're absolutely right, but I think this council's also stood behind the other general employees throughout the city to help.
Wouldn't we have given more money if we could?
If we could have, we would have.
I think so.
And you look at the wage increase, and then you look at the dollar amount, and we are giving $100,000 more than the increase to our employees. That's a big deal.
Yeah,
And
it's a big deal.
I think when you look at the levy rate only, what you're looking at is the delinquency that's happened at the county level in appraisals of our property. And if that had been maintained over the years like it should have been, our levy rate would never have gotten that high.
you'd never see that. Never. You're right. So I think this council's done a good job, and I'm telling you, I'm waiting for somebody to say, Ashley, publish as is, get us the real numbers, We'll all go home and pray that Roger's numbers are correct.
I hope they're low.
I hope they're low too.
I chose 20%. because
You're the
I know-
closest right now, so you better be praying most.
Yeah, well, I chose 20% because I know that a lot of properties went up 24 and 25 and 30 and beyond. And so I chose a number so that I hopefully would come in conservative. But there's no guarantees because we don't know what what will happen in the Board of Equalization. And
There's 1,200 people that are going to find out.
I'm going to jump on your bandwagon because I have not heard an evaluation that has come in lower than 30%. I've heard 30 to 80%.
I've heard some at 25, so
So
that's the low end.
20% is, I think, okay. And Heidi, you had something.
Yep, we were clarifying our guidance with motions earlier, so I just wondered if I needed to make a motion for adding the increased revenue from the PDA, or if that was clear enough.
It's clear.
Everybody,
yeah.
I think it's clear
then
enough.
we'll do
I think-
that. Okay, then the other one I had a question on was what we're doing with the 24,656. That was the gap. So I would go ahead and make a motion for, oh, sorry. Did you have a
Can I
comment?
discuss something else before you make that motion?
Sure.
Just hold that motion for just a minute, because we have that 24, whatever. I would like us to reconsider Family Services Alliance and Free Clinic. Those are small amounts, but they're important services in our community, and we have supported them before, and I would really like us to continue to support them.
6,500.
I'd like us to reconsider adding those back in.
I think that's fair.
That's a total of $6,500. 3,000 and 3,500.
Well, I don't disagree that they are very valuable services to our community, but I hate to see us just blow through it because it's there and
Well,
we can. So I'll go ahead and continue my motion that we publish with the numbers that we have on here, and we don't include that additional 24,656. I don't want to see us just cap out at the 3% because we can.
And these are additional things to what we, well,
Yes,
Free Clinic, there's no additional thing, but
But for Family Services
Family
Alliance,
Service
there is.
Alliance,
And
it
we
would
gave
be-
them an increase
would
last
be-
year.
So that is not, that's additional, so we are continuing to give them
Yes.
money.
We're
This
not
is an
giving Free
additional-
Clinic.
Yeah.
Free clinic.
Free Clinic
Right.
moved out of our building. We were paying maintenance on
Right.
our building, all of those things pursuant to them being a tenant and supporting them in our building. They're now asking us, after vacating our building, to support them in another building. And I don't think, I think that changes our mission towards them. And Family Service Alliance, I think they're a very worthy entity, but we already support them. We've upped it recently, and I know where they're pressed because the nonprofit sector has had so much decreased funding from, well, I'd say, general government.
Well, we did have one question that came up last time when we discussed the free clinic. And I believe, Jim, you posed the question of, that really is the county's mission and how much does the county give them? And I got clarification that the county gives them $70,000. So they are substantially supported by the county, but they do serve our citizens in Pocatello, and I think and I know that they are struggling right now in their new facility. And I still would like us to consider the 3,500.
But this would be a pass-through. If I remember the email we received, they're paying Portneuf Health Trust a pretty high fee for rent or something, or yeah. So
It's a
I don't see it as a
maintenance fee.
real contribution. It just helps them solve a problem they have with the health trust. And I think the health trust mission is to work with them. And their mission is more to work with the health trust than here.
Residents of Pocatello, residents of Bannock County too. That's where
Yeah.
that's who should be paying the bill.
Well, Bannock County pays indigent services, and this helps with that. And if you go back, then you're opening up, how much do we pay Meals on Wheels? And, you know, you have to start evaluating because Meals on Wheels is hurting. How much do you look at Aid for Friends? You start opening it up, and they'll be back asking for more as well.
Does anyone want to second my motion?
We have a motion.
I'll second Heidi's motion.
The motion is
So your
Heidi's.
motion died.
I didn't make a motion, I was just asking
You
us
said you
to
would like to make a motion.
ask us to consider it. But Heidi's motion is the one on the floor.
Let's restate that for precision.
The motion is to have Ashley proceed with publishing with the guidance we've given her in this meeting and to not include that 24,656, to not allocate that. So we won't be taking the full 3, it'll be like 2.9 something, but, you know, but not to allocate that to anything at this time.
Sorry, were you looking at that?
So it'd be out of your 3%, you take 24,000
Out of that,
off of that.
I would remind you, council, that you can remove that at any time. You cannot go back
Can't go
up.
back up.
You can't go down. You can't go back up.
It signals an
We would be
intention.
really surprised if our evaluations come in.
We would be
low.
I would be very surprised. I would be shocked. I mean,
Yeah.
I would, yeah, absolutely
So I
be
think we're
completely
safe to
shocked.
do that in this instance.
I'm
It's
sure that
not
we
a
are.
huge
I'm sure
amount.
that we are, so.
Okay.
Bray. Bray seconded it. So we have a motion on the floor by Adamson and a second by Bray.
Publish at the current amounts less the excess.
Less the 24,656.
Okay. Okay, Adamson,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Cheatham,
No.
Johnston,
No.
Lurick,
Yes.
Manon,
No. I prefer as is with the 24.
I would prefer as is as well. I think that you can take it down. I do like the idea of it being an indicator that we are serious about taking it down if we can. I do not anticipate it, but I would like to see us take it down at the public hearing or at the study session on the 8th of August if we're going to. So I will be a no. Sorry, Heidi.
Trying to keep the ball rolling.
I know, she's doing her best to keep the ball
You can't bring
rolling.
it down. It's just, we can always, you don't know.
You can
We're
always-
back to something
we-
else.
Hey, let's remember
We haven't
this.
set
Are
a
we gonna
trend
bring
line
it
that says
down?
we're bringing it
Yeah, we haven't set the trend line. I mean,
We haven't
that's, we
established
have.
any trend line that's going down.
So I will
Yeah.
put it in the general fund.
Will you put a note so
Slush
that,
fund, right?
will you? No, there's no slush funds. There are absolutely no slush funds.
like-
But will you put a note so on August 8th, in our study session, when we're going over this after the public hearing, that we were going to talk about the $24,656 so that we can reduce that if there's not a need for it?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the goal is to bring it down, but
The goal is to bring it down.
We can still do that.
I agree. We can still do that.
Yes.
So am I hearing guidance to publish this?
I move we publish.
Second.
We have a motion by President Johnston and a second by Manon to have Ashley publish as is. Heidi wants to vote no just because. I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all.
flip the other way.
sorry, council, you've never made motions during this time before. so-
No, we haven't.
Throw it off.
We could blame our attorney for this one.
Yeah.
I show you deliberate.
Johnston,
Yes.
Manon,
Yes.
Adamson,
No.
Ray?
No. One more non-mayor.
Lurick?
Yes.
So do you have 3 and 3? Is it a tie? Okay. All right, okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your work, Ashley. I know you were here and up until 1 o'clock or something, getting this all put together after negotiations and stuff yesterday, so thank you for all of your work to get us to where we are. And with that, thank you for attending today, and we are adjourned from this meeting, and we will be back.
I need to not say that. Yeah.
We will be back for our city council meeting tonight. And council, we do have a lunch back there if you wish to.